Just when you thought the race for president couldn't get any crazier, we saw escalations on several fronts today, from candidates crying liar, liar, essentially, to new threats of a lawsuit, to a war of words between Donald Trump and the former president, George W. Bush, who was out on the stump for his brother Jeb tonight. And adding fuel to this inferno, there is now an epic political battle looming after the sudden death of a Supreme Court Justice, Antonin Scalia.
George W. Bush.
Usually when former presidents hit the campaign trail, it's a reasonably polite affair.
Colonel, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for serving.
But just hours before George W. Bush went out to stump for his brother Jeb today in South Carolina, he got hit by a hurricane known as Donald J. Trump.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
The World Trade Center came down during his reign. So that was, it's like he was the top. The World Trade Center came down.
In response, W didn't call out Trump by name, but it was pretty obvious who he was talking about.
It is not bluster. It is not theatrics. Real strength, strength of purpose, comes from integrity and character. And in my experience, the strongest person usually isn't the loudest one in the room.
The former president also defended his handling of 9/11, talking about how he reacted when he learned while reading to a group of school kids in Florida that a second plane had hit the towers.
My first reaction is, that's hot. We're going to deal with these people. My second reaction when I was staring at this young child is that my job became crystal clear, and that is to protect her, her community, and her country.
Then Jeb rose to speak.
I thought it was a little strange that a front-running candidate would attack the President of the United States, who did keep us safe, while he was building a reality TV show.
Trump is fighting a multi-front battle right now, with T-minus 5 days until the South Carolina primary.
Well, Ted Cruz is desperate. Look, I think Ted's a very unstable guy.
Aside from slamming the Bushes, he is also spewing venom at Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
As I said, he's the single worst liar I've ever seen.
That word, the L word, is not something you see thrown around very much in politics. The fact that Donald Trump went there and has taken this to a personal level. This is no longer about policy. It's about personality.
Thank you.
For good measure, Florida Senator Marco Rubio is joining the liar pants on fire choir. Both men accuse Cruz of distorting their records.
There's no other word for it but lie.
I would note, when both Marco Rubio and Donald Trump just scream liar, 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 it makes you wonder how they would handle dealing with Putin.
In the battle with Cruz, Trump now says he's willing to go past name-calling to litigation.
I'm going to bring a lawsuit because, in my opinion, based on what I've learned over the last 2-3 days from very top lawyers, he doesn't even have the right to serve as president or even run as president. He was born in Canada.
The World Trade Center came down.
As you absorb the mayhem in the Republican race,
You probably are worse than Jeb Bush.
consider that it is now playing out against the backdrop of what promises to be a historic battle set off by the sudden death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia over the weekend.
I, Antonin Scalia, do solemnly swear.
I, Antonin Scalia, do solemnly swear.
Scalia was the longest-serving justice on the bench, appointed by Ronald Reagan in 1986. He was a pillar of conservative thought, known for his biting dissents and his belief that rulings should be guided by the words of the Constitution as it was drafted. Saturday morning, Justice Scalia was found dead in his room at this hunting ranch in Texas, reportedly of natural causes. He was 79. Word of his sudden passing hit Washington, D.C. like a thunderbolt.
We are one justice away from losing our fundamental rights in this country.
Scalia's death throws a huge unknown factor into this campaign. It has the potential to scramble the entire race for president.
The Constitution says the sitting president can nominate the next justice, which is what President Obama says he will do.
I plan to fulfill my constitutional responsibilities to nominate a successor in due time.
But that successor needs to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate, which is controlled by the Republicans. And in an unprecedented statement just an hour after confirmation of Scalia's death, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he would block any Obama nominee. Quote, the American people should have a voice in the selection of their next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren making this counterpoint in a now viral Facebook post. Senator McConnell is right that the American people should have a voice in the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. In fact, they did when President Obama won the 2012 election by 5 million votes.
To have a lame duck president with a party that's the opposition party in the Senate at the same time as you have this volatile, angry, raucous presidential campaign, this confluence of factors has never happened before.
With the makeup of the Supreme Court potentially hanging in the balance, Republican presidential candidates are pulling no punches. Senator Ted Cruz wasting no time releasing a new attack ad just yesterday, asking South Carolina voters if they trust Donald Trump to choose a Supreme Court justice.
We cannot trust Donald Trump with these serious decisions.
At the Republican debate Saturday night in South Carolina, just hours after the news of Scalia's death broke, a moment of silence quickly gave way to the candidates one-upping one another on who could talk toughest on stymieing the president's plan to install a replacement.
I do not believe the president should appoint someone.
It's called delay, delay, delay.
We're not going to give up the U.S. Supreme Court for a generation by allowing Barack Obama to make one more liberal appointee.
Meanwhile, the Democrats are vowing to put up a fight. Hillary Clinton signaling she'll make the Republican effort to block President Obama's nominee a campaign issue.
Let me just make one point. Barack Obama is president of the United States until January 20th, 2017.
The burning question now, who might President Obama nominate? 48-year-old Sri Srinivasan's name is at the top of many short lists. 3 years ago, his nomination as D.C. Circuit Judge was unanimously confirmed by the Senate. He would be the first Supreme Court justice of South Asian descent. 63-year-old Merrick Garland is the Chief Judge of the D.C. Circuit. He's a widely respected moderate whose name has been floated as a possible nominee before. And then there's 52-year-old Patricia Millett, also from the D.C. Circuit Court. The 8 remaining Supreme Court justices are scheduled to return from a break next week. They are facing a docket filled with controversial issues, including abortion, contraception, unions, voting rights, affirmative action, and immigration. Justice Scalia's death means the court no longer has a tie-breaking vote. If the 8 remaining justices are split on a decision, that means the lower court ruling will stand.
The Chief Justice could also decide to put some of those cases that would be 4-4 cases over and have them re-argued, presumably after there's a replacement for Justice Scalia in place.
Justice Scalia's body was returned to Virginia in the early hours of this morning. For now, his body remains at this funeral home. No plans announced yet about his ultimate resting place. Meanwhile, the fate of his vacant seat, still an open and seemingly infinitely contentious question.